earth. So if you're ready, lay back, close your eyes. Let's begin. Before you open your eyes, the cold is already there, not just in the air, but in your bones, your breath. In the damp straw beneath your back, the medieval village never warms entirely, not even in summer, and certainly not now. Not this morning, because morning in the year 1327 doesn't come with light bulbs, coffee, or clocks. It comes with smoke. With coughing, with the sound of a chicken being strangled in a hut nearby, there is no bed. You sleep on a pile of flattened hay. If you're lucky, you've got a rough wool blanket. If you're luckier, no one else is shivering under it with you. But usually, you share. Mother, father, siblings, all curled up together in one room, because the house is one room. A fire in the center, smoldering from the night before. Walls. Made from wattle and daub, thatch, mud, and branches held together by centuries of habit and poverty. The roof leaks when it rains. Rats live above it. They scurry through the rafters as you blink awake. You don't scream. You've grown used to them. Your eyes, just slowly to the dimness. There's a faint gray light outside, enough to see your breath, enough to remind you that it's time to rise. You are 10 years old, or 12, or perhaps 14. No one kept a record. You are old enough to work. So you work every day, from now till your body fails. Outside, the village begins to breathe. A rooster crows, horse impatient. A wooden door slams. Someone yells at a pig. Child cries, already scolded for being slow. You hear the river nearby? Not a peaceful trickle, but a churning, living thing. It cuts through the mud behind the huts, carrying waste runoff, everything no one wants to bury. You will drink from that river later. Everyone does. You try not to think about what's in it. There are no streets here, only paths carved by foot and hoof and cart. They twist through the huts. The pens, the fields. The ground is never dry. It sticks to your ankles and pulls at your steps. In spring, it clings like tar. In summer, it hardens into ruts. In winter, it freezes into jagged ridges. You've fallen many times. Your knees are always scraped. That's normal. There are no shoes on your feet. Not yet. Not unless your family has leather to spare, and most. Do not so your toes sink into mud and manure. As you walk toward the well, you carry a wooden bucket. Your arms ache from yesterday's work. They will ache more tomorrow. But that's tomorrow, for now. The day begins. The center of your village is little more than a trampled patch of ground, surrounded by maybe 20 homes. To the north, the Lord's Manor. High on the hill, stone. Cold, silent. To the south, the fields stretching toward the tree line. The tree line is where the wild lives, the wolves, the bandits, the devils, they say. To the west, the church. Always watching. Its bell tower leans a little like it's tired of praying, and to the east, the river again. Winding, dark, and wide. Everywhere else, just huts and smoke. In work, there is no clock, but you know the time. The sun hasn't cleared the trees yet, so you have maybe 20 minutes to eat. If there is anything to eat, your stomach tightens. Not from hunger, but from the hope that hunger might go away. Your mother is already outside. Kneeling near the ashes, she's grinding something in a bowl, probably barley, or weeds, or whatever was left from last week. She doesn't speak. She doesn't smile. She hasn't smiled in weeks. She hands. Ooh, a piece of coarse bread, dry, cracked. Hard as bone. You chew slowly. You try not to choke. It tastes like wood, but it fills the space in your belly just enough to walk, just enough to lift. The village is waking, and it does not care if you're tired. The fields are waiting. The animals are waiting. The Lord is always waiting, and there is no one else to do the work. You pass a cart with a broken wheel. It's been broken for years. No one bothers fixing it. It serves better as a bench. You once saw an old man die on. He just closed his eyes and didn't open them again. No one screamed. No one cried. They just carried him to the edge of the village, said a prayer. He was old, maybe 35. You glance at the church tower. The cross above it is crooked inside. The priest is probably already praying or pretending to. He's the only one in the village who can read. He speaks Latin. You don't know what the words mean, but he says they keep the devil away. You hope he's right, and so the day begins. The first hour, the first step. In this place, the sun may rise, but comfort never does, because here, in this quiet, rotting corner of the world, every hour is survival, and you have many more to go. You carry the tools now. They are heavy in your hands, heavier still in your memory. They were your father's once, and his father's before him. A rusted hoe, worn smooth where calloused hands have gripped it for 3 generations. A wooden spade, its blade cracked, like missing teeth. A sack of seed so old the seams are patched, with animal gut. These are your companions, not friends, not allies. Just burdens you must carry, because there is no farming without pain and no survival without farming. The fields lie beyond the last row of huts. Past the trampled grass and the cow dung, you walk there now. The sun is higher, but the warmth hasn't reached the ground yet. Frost still clings to the weeds. Your breath fogs in the air. You don't speak. No one does. The morning is not for talking. It's for working. Now the work is hard. The land is open, but it isn't free. The fields belong. To the Lord everything here does. The earth, the crops, animals. Even you, in a way. You are bound to this place, to its rules, to its ancient agreements written in Latin that you will never read. You labor not for your family, but for his. You reach the row you've been assigned. It stretches. Ahead, like a punishment, rows of wet, uneven soil. Thick clods, tangled roots, hidden rocks. You begin to dig. The first swing jars your arm. The hoe strikes a stone. Your shoulder aches. You swing again and again. The rhythm is not chosen. It is imposed. Your back bends. Your knees press into the muck. You work until you sweat, and then you keep working, because it is only the first hour of the field, and there are many more. You are not alone. There are others beside you, children, elders, women heavy with child. Some limp, some wheeze. One drags a deformed foot behind her, but still carries seed in a basket. You don't pity them. You don't have the luxury. There's no time for pity here. Only dirt and sweat and silence. The danger is constant. Yesterday, a man sliced his palm open on a rusted plow blade. They wrapped it in linen, said a prayer. But the wound is black now. He didn't return today. No one asked why. You've seen people lose fingers. 2 blades, 2 frost. To animals, you've seen women collapse in the sun, seen boys fall asleep on their feet, only to be kicked awake by their fathers. There is no kindness in the field, only the expectation that you will keep going or be replaced. You are part of the land, now just another moving thing among the weeds, a breathing tool, a beast that can be worked until it breaks, and you feel it in your spine, in your wrists, in your neck, that slow, creeping crack that comes with repetition. The kind that never fully heals. You were not meant to do this forever, but you must. Scene shift. The midday sun rises. The sun is overhead now. The bell rings from the church. It doesn't call you to prayer. Not today. It signals the hour for bread. You rise. Slowly, your joints protest. Your stomach growls. But the ache is louder than the hunger. You return to the edge of the field and eat. Your meal is simple. A crust of black bread, a pinch of salt, some onions if you're lucky. No meat, no milk, no joy. Just enough to keep you from collapsing. You chew in silence. You wipe your mouth on your sleeve. You stand and return to the field. There is no reward for the morning's labor. No. Applause, no coin. No comfort. Only the knowledge that the afternoon will be worse, that your arms will shake, that your knees will buckle, that the sun will burn your neck until it peels, and you will still be out here, because this is what it takes to live one more day. They're dying again. The animals, it happens every year, usually in the spring. When the mud deepens and the rot rises, you heard it before you saw it, the cough, that low, wheezing grunt from the hut beside the woods. Their pig, the only one they had, is lying on its side now, not moving. It's barely breathing. Foam around its mouth. Eyes open, but dull. They tried everything. Garlic, salt. Even a prayer whispered in Latin, but it won't rise, and they know what that means. A pig is not just meat, it's insurance. It's winter. It's weddings and funerals and favors from the priest. Without it, they'll starve. Or worse, beg. And in this village, no one likes beggars. They are ghosts before they die. You remember when your family's last goat died? Your mother cried. Your father did not speak for 2 days. It wasn't the animal that broke them. It was what came after. The hunger, the shame, the loss of milk, of warmth, of the last thread between survival and the dark. Only one family in your village owns a cow. They are not wealthy, just lucky. The cow is old, broad and slow, with eyes like dark glass. Each morning the boy leads it to pasture with rope. Each night he milks it while whispering prayers he barely remembers. You watch sometimes, because milk is life, not just for drinking, for barter, for bread, for infants who can't nurse. So when the cow limps, when it coughs or stumbles, the whole village feels it. You've seen people pray harder for that cow than they've prayed for their own kin. Because the cow feeds more than one family, it feeds hope, and hope in this place is in short supply. The animals die in strange ways. Sometimes from illness, black spots, swollen throats, shaking limbs. Sometimes from injury, a broken leg, a wound from a wild dog, a fall on the frozen road. Sometimes, no one knows. They just stop eating, stop moving, and die. You learn not to cry anymore. Chickens go missing. Foxes take them. The sheep wander off and don't return. You know what found them? You stop asking questions once. A sow gave birth to 6. Piglets. 4 died by morning, 1 more by the end. Only 1 survived, but not for long. It slipped into the latrine and drowned. They didn't even pull it out. They just stopped using that side of the pit and dug another. When an animal must die, you do it quickly. But it is never easy. The first time you held the knife, your hands trembled. You were 11. The chicken squirmed. Its eyes were small, black and ancient. Your father showed you where to cut, behind the jaw. One motion you missed. It screamed blood. Sprayed your shirt was red for days. But you ate that night, and you remember the taste. Even now, you do not name them anymore. Not the hens, not the pigs, not the cats that come and go. They are not pets. They are tomorrow's meal, next week's cloak, next winter's warmth. You cannot afford affection. But sometimes, late at night, when the wind is quiet, you whisper their names anyway. The goat that followed you as a child. The dog that licked your face when your sister died. The old horse with cloudy eyes who let you lean against her side and cry. They are all gone now, and you are still here, barely, and tomorrow. Another one will die. You don't know which, but you know it will happen. Because in the medieval village, animals don't grow old. They just grow useful. And then, they don't. Before. You learn to speak. You learn to fear. And before you learn to fear the wolves, the winter, or the weight of hunger, you feared hell because the church made sure you did. There is a building in the center of your village. It leans a little. Its roof sags. Its bell is cracked. The wood is wet with age, but still, it stands, and it watches. You were brought there. When you were small, wrapped in linen, red-faced and wailing, the priest dipped you in cold water and murmured words you did not understand. He smeared your forehead with ash. He spoke of original sin. He spoke of blood and of death and of a man who died nailed to a tree. You didn't understand, but your mother wept, and that was enough. You walk past the church. Every morning, you bow your head, even when you don't want to, because someone is always watching the priest. The Lord's Reeve, or God himself. Inside, it is always cold, Stone floor, wooden benches, smell of wax, rot, and incense. On Sunday, everyone is there, not because they want to be, because they must. The priest reads in Latin. You do not speak. Latin, no one does except him. He could be telling the truth. Or not. You would never know. But you sit still, because he says that God sees all and hears all, even your thoughts, even your dreams. They teach you that. You are born wrong, that your thoughts are dangerous, that your body is a vessel of sin. If you speak too harshly, you sin. If you feel envy, you sin. If you dream of warmth, of love, of freedom, you sin. There are no pure thoughts, only penance. You confess to things you barely understand. You kneel. In dirt, you whisper into the dark. You cry not because you did wrong, but because you were told that you did, and no one ever questions the priest. You've seen what? This happens to those who doubt. Once a man said the priest took too much grain for the tithe. The next week, that man was found face down in the river. No. Wounds. No witnesses, but no one asked questions. The priest said a prayer, and the village forgot. He owns the best. Cloak in the village, he drinks wine when the rest of you chew bark. He tells stories of miracles and demons, of saints who bled for God, of sinners who burned in lakes of fire. He says the world is broken, but only thee. Church can fix it if you pay, if you obey, if you suffer. The priest is there. When you are born, he names you. He is there when you marry. He tells you who you may love and who you must not. And when you die, he buries you. Or he doesn't, because without the church's blessing, your soul will wander, rotting, screaming in limbo. Forever. You do not know what heaven looks like, but you know it. Not here. So you hope. You kneel. You fast when told. You beat your breast. You whisper apologies in the dark long after the priest has gone to sleep. Because if there is no heaven, what's the point of all this? Sometimes you wonder. But only at night. Only in the privacy of your own mind. You wonder if it's all just fear. If God is really watching. If the priest knows more than you. But then you wake. And you see the steeple and the crooked cross and the empty sky. And you stop wondering. Because here, in this village, faith is not hope. Faith is survival in the village. Death is not a moment. It is a rhythm. It moves like fog, silently without warning. Without apology, no one screams when it comes. Not anymore. They just lower their eyes, tighten their jaw, start digging. It's not dramatic, not like in stories. Most people in the village die slowly, softly, like a candle left to burn down. To its base, the sickness begins with a cough, then a fever, then the silence. Or sometimes it's faster. A fall from a cart, a wound that won't stop bleeding, a horse's kick, a lung full of mold. The grave is shallow, the soil is too hard to dig. Deeper, especially in winter. Especially when the man with the shovel has a twisted spine and fingers that don't close. You've helped dig before, your hands bled. You didn't wear gloves. You don't own any. No one cried that time. The boy was only 4. He had a bad stomach and no name anyone remembered. The priest came. He muttered Latin over the body. No one understood the words. They sounded holy, so they bowed their heads. The child was wrapped in old linen, lowered into the ground. A single cross was placed at the head. No one carved his name. No, one had the tools. You've stepped over graves your whole life. You don't remember who lies where. Some are marked. 8. Some aren't. Some have been dug again and again, bones scattered, pressed down beneath the newer dead. Once you found a tooth in the garden. Your mother told you to toss it in the fire. Cold, still tone. The floors of the old church are not solid. They're thin. It's hollow in places. Sometimes when the wind howls just right, you hear them. The dead not speaking, not crying, just waiting. You don't tell anyone. Everyone already knows. In the hut beside yours, a woman died giving birth. The child didn't cry, neither did her husband. He simply washed the blood from the straw, placed a cloth over her face, and went back to the field. He had no other choice. There were taxes to be paid. There are no undertakers here. No tombstones, no embalming. You die. You're buried. Your forgotten life must continue. There is wheat to thresh, wood to chop, goats to feed. The fire still needs tending. The stomach still needs filling. No one has time to mourn. Voice softens. Reflective, slightly haunted, but grief doesn't vanish. It just gets quieter. It curls beneath your ribs. It lives behind your eyes. It shows up in dreams not as screams or fire, but as faces, smiling, turning, walking away. You wake up cold, and you go back to work. You once kept a bone, a small one, maybe from a hand or a foot. You found it near the tree line, half buried in moss. You cleaned it, wrapped it in cloth, hid it in the corner of your sleeping mat. You don't know why. Maybe it's for protection. Maybe because it was the only thing in this world that had been still for longer than a moment. Maybe because you wanted to remember that you, too, would become. This one day the village forgets quickly, but the bones remain beneath the fields, beneath the floorboards, beneath your very feet. They are always there, waiting. You don't go to the market often, but when you do, you never forget it. The sounds, the smells. The way it clings to your skin after you leave, as if the place itself doesn't want to let you go. Your village doesn't have its own market. It's too small, too poor, too forgotten. So when trade is needed, and only when it's truly needed, someone is sent to the nearest town. That town is 6 miles away, through forest. Over stream, across 2 crumbling bridges. The road is not paved. It is not safe. Is not quiet. You went once, at the edge of harvest season. You were told to walk beside the cart, to keep the basket steady, to say nothing to anyone, and most of all, do not touch anything. You hear it before you see it. The clatter of hooves. Barking of dogs. The screaming of pigs tied to carts. Too tightly, the yelling of traders in 10 different accents, none of them kind. The moment you enter, your nose fills with stench, sweat, rotten fruit, unwashed flesh, and something else. Something sweet and sickly, like flesh left too long in the sun. That smell, you learn, is human. The market has no walls. It sprawls. It's like a wound that never scabs. Tents sag under damp linen. Stalls tilt sideways on uneven stones. Rainwater pools in muddy corners where rats scurry between cabbage leaves and broken bones, and everywhere. People, so many people, more than you've ever seen in one place. Some wear colors you've never seen before. Some wear coins in their ears. Some wear no shoes. Some wear no expressions at all. They jostle past you. No one apologizes. You are invisible here, and that strangely makes you feel safer. You are here to trade. Eggs, wool, maybe a copper cup. If you're brave, you do not ask for gold. No one like. You handles gold. You are offered things in return. Salt, fish, dried apples. A comb made of bone. You don't trust the seller, but you accept anyway, because there is no bargaining. Only, it's quiet surrender, in danger. It's everywhere, not the kind with blades. Though those exist too, but the slow kind. The kind you breathe in. A cough from the man with boils on his neck. A child picking lice from her hair, then reaching for your sleeve. A monk walking barefoot through filth, blessing everyone with the same filthy hand. You hold your breath as long as you can, but it's already inside you. It always was. There are rumors in the market. Whispers pass between women hunched over baskets. They speak of sickness in the next town, of bodies burned, ships from the east, of black spots and vomiting blood. You do not understand it all, but you remember the way. They looked when they said it, the way they crossed themselves, the way their eyes darted behind them, as if death himself were walking the stalls. Maybe he was, you see strange things, a puppet show with devils and angels, dancing on wires, a man selling teeth from pigs, from wolves, from children, a woman reading fortunes in a language you've never heard, a blind beggar mumbling prayers into a bone cup. one eye missing, the other clouded like river water. You do not stay long. You sell what you can. You eat what you must. And then you go. You do not speak on the way back, and you do not sleep that night. And when? A week later, your sister begins to cough. You think of that smell of the flies. Spots on that man's neck, of the soup you drank that day, and you wonder if the market gave you what you needed, or if it took something you can't get back. Asterisk, it didn't start with much, just a spark. A lazy ember that leapt from the hearth, landed in the straw beside the door, and waited. The woman didn't notice. She was nursing her youngest. The baby was feverish. She was tired. She would never know what she missed in those quiet, fatal seconds. The fire moved like a whisper. The walls were dry, the thatch even drier. The smoke crept along the roof beams like it knew the way. By the time someone screamed, it was too late. You were outside, chopping wood. You smelled it first, then you saw the smoke thick, black and wrong. Not the kind from cooking, the kind from burning timber. The kind that says, something is being destroyed. Then came the panic. There is no fire brigade, no. Water buckets strung in neat rows, no trained hands, no emergency bell. There is shouting, there is chaos, there is dirt flung in handfuls. There are people running with blankets, with children, with chickens clutched under their arms. There are men trying to beat the fire with sticks. It laughs at them, and it spreads. The hut beside yours is next. You see it go roof, curling inward. Flames licking the doorway like a hungry animal. Your neighbor screams for her daughter. Someone drags her back, sobbing, kicking, scratching. The sky is orange now. Ash falls like snow. The wind changes. And suddenly, it's your home. You don't even have time to think. You just grab what you can. The bread, your blanket, your brother's wooden cross. Your mother yells your name. Then the roof caves in. You feel the heat before you feel the loss. Your eyes sting. Your skin burns. Your legs move without permission. And then just like that, your world is gone. The fire dies when it has nothing left to eat. And in the silence that follows, you finally hear the crying. Not loud, not wailing, just constant. A low sound, like something beneath the earth is weeping. The village is black now, charred, cloaked in smoke. Homes gone, animals dead, tools melted, food turned to ash. There are no visitors, no lords, no relief, just your own two hands, your family, and what little didn't burn. That night you sleep outside. If you sleep at all, the ground is still hot in places. You smell your own hair, it stinks of smoke. You don't speak. No one does. The fire burned more than wood. It took stories. Cradles, chairs carved by hand, the wall where you scratched your name. When you were small, gone. The corner where your sister was born, gone. The beam your father fixed with iron nails, gone. The past is ash. You begin again. You find sticks, ropes, anything not scorched. Beyond use. Your hands bleed. You don't wait for help. It won't come. And winter doesn't care what you lost only, but you can build again. Weeks pass. The new roof is lower. The walls are colder. The wind slips through cracks, but it stands. And that's enough. You tell yourself it's enough. But on certain nights, when the wind whistles just right through the thatch, you swear you can still smell smoke. Asterisk, there are many kinds of pain in the village, the pain of cold, of work, of grief, but none is more patient, more constant, more quietly cruel than hunger. It arrives without ceremony. One bad harvest. It's one spoiled cart of grain. One storm too many. And suddenly, there is not enough. Not enough bread. Not enough broth. Not enough to share. You remember the year it began. The wheat never ripened. The rain wouldn't stop. The fields were mud. The animals coughed. The barley rotted in the sacks, and the cellar was empty by midwinter. Hunger doesn't hit you all at once. It arrives slowly. You feel it first in your hands, shaking, clumsy, weaker than usual. Then in your stomach, a twisting, endless ache. Then your head. Light, dizzy, unfocused. Then your thoughts. They slow. They darken. You forget names. You forget prayers. You forget the feeling of being full. You chew bark, boil leaves, scrape moss off stones and mix it into broth. Your mother stirs a pot of nothing, water thickened with root scrapings and crushed acorns. It makes your lips numb. But it keeps you standing. Just barely. You eat less each day, not by choice, but by necessity. You divide one loaf into 6. You save the crusts for the elders or the infants or whoever cried loudest that morning. You try to pretend you're not. Hungry, you try to sleep, but the hunger dreams are the worst. In those dreams, you eat berries. Boiled meat, salted fish. You laugh. Your hands are full, your mouth is warm, and then you wake up, and you are biting your own knuckles in your sleep. People begin to change. Voices grow sharp. Tempers quicken. A woman was beaten for stealing a carrot. A boy vanished. After sneaking into a neighbor's cellar, they said he ran away. But you don't believe that. No one leaves the village. Not in winter. The priest says the famine is a punishment for sin, for pride, for lust, or envy, or forgetting to tithe. You don't care why anymore. You just want it to end. Once you caught a rat. It was fat. You skinned it with a sharp rock. Cooked it over an open flame. It tasted like wood. It made you sick. But for a few hours, you felt alive again, and that was enough. Your sister stopped crying one morning. She just stared at the wall, didn't blink, didn't move, just drifted. She survived the famine. But not all of her came back. She hasn't spoken since, not even to you. Then spring returned. Not a celebration, just slightly softer ground. Slightly warmer rain, new weeds, a few eggs. Your body creaked as it worked. Again, your belly stayed empty, but not desperate. You survived, but the hunger did not leave. It stayed behind your ribs. It lived in your blood. Even now, when the cellar is full and the goats give milk, you still take smaller portions. You still chew slowly. You still hide a piece of bread in your sleeve, just in case. Because in the medieval village, the famine never ends. It just gets quiet. It began with silence. Not here, somewhere else. A merchant's town. A coastal city. A place none of you would ever see. But people whispered of it in the market, at the mill. During mass, they said there were ships, docked in the dark, and the men. On board were already dead. The rumors spread faster than the truth. Some said it was a punishment. Some said it came from the east. Some said it was the devil himself, walking in the skin of a black dog. But no one truly knew, only that it moved. Town by town, mile by mile, closer. And then, one day, your village changed forever. It was the baker's boy first. He hadn't come to the oven that morning. By midday, he was coughing. By nightfall, he was dead. They said he choked on his own blood, that his neck was swollen, that his tongue had turned black. No, one went near the house, but it didn't matter. It was already too late. The old woman who helped wash his body, she was next. Then her daughter. Then her daughter's husband. By the third day, the church bell rang so often, it sounded like thunder. You stopped counting the dead after 12. There were too many, and not enough graves. You knew it had reached your hut when your father didn't wake up. His face was pale. His lips cracked. He didn't speak, just stared ahead, breathing in short, shallow gasps. You tried to give him water. He didn't drink. You didn't touch him again, they say. The Black Death took a third of the world, but no one in your village could count that high. They just knew. The streets were quiet. The fields were empty. The doors were shut. And still the coughing came. Some tried prayers. They knelt in mud, whipped their backs, screamed for forgiveness. Others blamed the well. They filled it with rocks. Others blamed the Jews. But there were none in your village, so they blamed witches. Women with herbs, men with crooked backs. anyone too quiet. One was tied to a tree. You watched it happen. You didn't speak, because if you spoke, they might look at you next. The priest stopped coming. Even he was afraid. You hadn't heard Mass in 6 days. You wondered if God had left, or if he was watching. And doing nothing, the bodies piled up. Some were burned, some were buried in pits, shallow. Quick, nameless. One morning you saw a cart roll by with 3 children inside. None of them moved. One still held a toy. You stopped looking people in the eyes, no. One wanted to see the fear there, or the guilt. No one wanted to admit what they knew. Not everyone would make it. And then, as suddenly as it came, coughing stopped. The bell was quiet. The village was still too. Still you were alive, but so many were not. There was no celebration. No feast. No songs. No rebuilding. Just the sound of wind through broken thatch, silence, and houses that once held laughter. You walked past the baker's hut. The door still hung open. The smell inside was unbearable. No one went in. No one cleaned it. The past stayed exactly where it died, even years later. Remember how quiet the world became? Not peaceful, just hollow, as if the village itself had stopped. It's breathing. Some say the plague went away. Some say it just slept. But you knew better. It was still here. Just waiting. Because in the medieval village, nothing truly leaves. Not hunger, not fear, not death. Only people, asterisk. The forest begins just past the last hut. It is not far. It is not hidden. You can see it from your door, tall trunks, black at the base. Branches like reaching fingers. Moss, slick with damp and shadow. The trees grow close together there. Too close, so no light gets in. Even on the sunniest day, the forest looks like dusk, and no one enters it, unless they have to. The forest is not evil, but it is hungry, and it does not care who you are. You went once to gather mushrooms. You were warned, stay near the edge, don't step off the path. Don't turn if you hear something behind you. You laughed. You thought it was a story, but when you entered, the laughter vanished. There are no birds deep in the forest, only silence. In the sound of your own breathing, you took 10 steps in, and the world changed. They say the forest holds the old things, not just wolves. Though those exist, not just bears, though they leave claw marks on trees taller than your hut, but older things. Things that lived here before the village, before the church, before names. The village tells stories of lights that move between trees, of women with deer hooves and hollow eyes, of songs that lead you off the path until the moss eats your feet and the trees drink your breath. No one laughs at those stories, because too many have gone missing. A boy vanished last winter, 12 years old, went to gather firewood. Didn't come back. They found his boot near the stream, and nothing else. No blood, no tracks, no sign. The priest said it was wolves, but his mother said he'd always worn a charm, carved from rowan wood, to ward off spirits. She swore it kept him safe, until it didn't. Sometimes you hear noises at night, not voices, not animals, just things. Creaks that come from the treetops, footsteps where no one walks, shape that moves quickly, silently. Just at the edge of sight, you pretend you didn't see it, because no one who goes looking ever comes back whole. There are places you do not go. The stone circle, the pond that never freezes, the tree with no leaves, even in summer. No. One speaks of them. No one points at them. But you all know where they are. You walk faster when you pass them, and you never, ever whistle, the old woman in your village says. She once followed a fox into the woods, red and swift. It darted between the trunks. She chased it. For hours, it seemed. Then the trees changed. The moss grew black. The sky disappeared. Her name slipped from her tongue like breath on glass. She ran. And when she came out, the sun was gone. 3 days had passed. She doesn't leave her hut anymore. The forest takes things, not all at once.
Ouch.
Sometimes it just watches and waits until you are tired
Oh.
or lonely or desperate. And then you follow a sound you shouldn't. You step off the path, and you're gone. The village was quiet that night, too quiet. Even the wind had stopped. No dogs barked. No babies cried. Even the trees stood still like they were listening. You had gone to bed early. Your body ached from threshing. Your skin still smelled of smoke and sweat and soil. You drifted off, thinking only of sleep. And then you heard. It is screamed not from your hut, not from the one beside it, but from everywhere, all at once. High, broken, inhuman. A sound made of pain, of something being torn, or something being born. It didn't rise. It didn't fall. It just was frozen in. The air, pressed against the walls. Inside your head, you didn't move. No one did, because you knew from the weight in your chest, from the silence that followed, from the way the very earth held its breath, that this was not something to be seen, only survived. No one left there. Beds. No one reached for a lantern, not even the bravest, not even the foolhardy. Your mother clutched her rosary. Your brother pulled the blanket over his face, and you lay there still as stone, listening for footsteps, or breathing, or weeping. But there was nothing at dawn. People emerged like ghosts. No one spoke. Not at first. Then someone asked, "Did you hear it?" Then everyone answered at once, "Yes, yes." The priest said it was a fox, or a dream, or the devil testing. Your faith, the blacksmith, said it was a bird, a wounded one. The cold does strange things to sound. But no one believed them, because they had all heard. It's the same thing. And they all knew that was not a bird. For weeks, no one stayed out past. Sunset, no one went into the woods. Even the drunkards stayed sober. Even the gamblers crossed themselves, because something had passed through the village, something no one could name, and nothing had been taken. Not that night, but somehow that made it worse. Because if it wasn't here for blood, what was it here for? A child stopped speaking, said she dreamed of a woman with no eyes. Said she woke with her hands covered in dirt. A goat was found split open, but no. Blood on the ground. The well water tasted like iron for a week. Then it stopped. The trees near the edge of the woods, they stopped growing. Their leaves curled like they had been scorched, though there had been no fire. And at night, sometimes you still heard it, not as loud, not as clear, but just enough to remember. The scream didn't leave anyone. Not truly, it lived behind the ears, in the breath between thoughts, the moment just before sleep. It reminded everyone that this place, this village, this life, this land, was not truly. There's not fully, and never would be. The cold came early that year. The leaves didn't fall. They simply curled black and vanished. The wind changed. The sky turned to stone. And then the world stopped breathing. It snowed before the harvest was in. The wheat froze. The cabbages burst in the ground. The goats huddled and refused to rise. You had never seen a frost like that. Not like this. Not so deep. Not so long. Not so hungry. The firewood ran out by the second week. The walls were damp. The floor was ice. Your breath curled upward like ghost. Smoke. You slept beside your siblings skin to skin just to keep your blood moving, but still, your fingers burned, then stung, then went numb. You knew what that meant. You just didn't say it. The birds left first, then the dogs stopped barking. Even the rats vanished, because even rats need warmth. Your mother tried to make soup, but the water froze in the pot, even above. The fire, you sucked on icicles like candy, pretended they filled your belly. They didn't. You heard stories of villages nearby, where people were found frozen in bed, sitting up, of men who wandered outside and turned to statues by morning. One boy, they said, cut off his own toes with a knife because he couldn't feel them anymore. He died anyway. The priest no longer held mass. The holy water turned solid. The bread cracked in half when he touched it. He said, God was testing your faith, but no one came to listen. Even the church was too cold to enter. That was the year the names began to fade, not because people forgot them, but because no one dared speak them. Too many gone. Too many taken. Too many left curled in corners, silent under linen, and if you said their names out loud, felt like calling the cold back in. You stopped keeping count, because what was the point? You buried no one. The ground was frozen. You left them in the hut and moved into another. When that one filled, you stopped moving. Your sister whispered stories at night, summers of bread. You asked her once, "Do you remember mine?" She paused, then said, "I think so." You cried then, not from pain, not from grief, but because the cold had taken so much. You were afraid it would take even memory. And then, one morning, you heard something strange. Dripping water. The snow was melting. The ground was showing its teeth. Again, winter had passed, but it had taken half the village with it. There was no celebration, no songs, no fires, no bell, just the slow sound of people stepping outside and staring at the sky. It's like they weren't sure what it meant anymore. You survived the cold, but not the way you were before it. You forgot some names, even your own for a while. But that was the way of the village to live on, not by remembering, but by enduring. You were born owing someone you would never meet. His name was carved into the land, his crest stamped on the cart that collected your grain. His men carried his seal, but he never came, not once, not in your lifetime still. You called him your lord. You were told to honor him. You would thank him for your hut, your field, your daily breath, even though he didn't dig the soil, didn't thatch. Your roof didn't bury your dead. He lived behind stone walls you'd never touch. A world away, up a hill, in a castle you only heard about in whispers. And yet, you were his. His face never came to the village, but his shadow did. Twice a year, the collectors arrived, on horseback, clothed in fur and mail, boots clean, eyes cold. They did not greet. They did not smile. They pointed. That, all of it, and the villagers handed it over. Wheat, honey, goat hides, copper, even if the harvest had failed, even if the children were sick, even if winter was coming. It didn't matter, the lords. Share was owed. Always you once watched your mother argue. She begged for more time. Held out your sister's empty hands, offered a blanket instead of coin. The collector did not answer. He simply struck her across the mouth, took the blanket anyway, and rode off. You helped her off the ground. She did not cry. She just said, "Don't. Let them see you afraid." There was no court in your village, only men who served the Lord. They carried scrolls and spears. They read laws. None of you understood. They punished in ways you did. Stocks, fines, whipping posts. Sometimes a thief's hand disappeared. Sometimes a woman was branded once. A man was hanged from the tree near the edge of the woods. His crime? Said he spoke the Lord's name without bowing first. You learned quickly what power meant. It didn't come with kindness, or presence, or care. It came with riders in cloaks, cold hands, and voices that never needed to shout, because you were already afraid. The Lord's men took what they wanted. Food, shelter, even people. You knew a girl who disappeared one summer. She was 15. They said she was. Selected for service. No one saw her again. No one asked, because asking was dangerous, and the Lord was always listening, even when he wasn't there. But here's what no one tells you. No one loved the Lord, not even his men. They feared him, resented him, but served him anyway, because there was no choice. And when he died, nothing changed. A new name was carved. A new seal pressed into wax in the village. Kept bowing, because that's what you do. You bow, even when no one's watching, even when no one comes. Asterisk everyone. In the village, dreamed of leaving at least once, usually at night. Usually after a long day of breaking earth or nursing a wound that wouldn't close, you'd lie awake staring at the roof beams. Imagine another life, a road that curved away from the village, never came back. In your dream, you walk, it alone, or with someone you love, or with someone who has already died. The air is warm, the trees are kind. The world is larger than you ever imagined. You see towns where people wear blue, mountains with snow that never melts, oceans, and on that road, no one asks your name. They just let you pass. But then, you wake up, and your hands are still dirty. Your back still aches, the roof still leaks, and the road. It's still out there, but no one walks it. People don't leave the village. Not really, because to leave is to vanish. To step off the path into a world that doesn't know you and doesn't want you. The forest lies on one side, the Lord's land on the other and beyond. That, bandits' war. Hunger without even a hut to hide in. You remember one man who tried? His name was Door. He was quiet, strange. He carved birds from bone and left them in trees. One morning, packed a sack and walked south. No one stopped him, but no one said goodbye either. He never returned. Some said he was robbed. Others said wolves. Others still said he found a city of light and silk and song. You liked that version, but even you stopped believing it. Eventually you wonder what it would feel like to sleep in a bed with corners, to drink wine, to read a book, to not fear the winter, to wake up just once without pain. You wonder if those things exist, or if they're just stories told by people. With full bellies and warm fingers, you wonder what lies past the hills, but you'll never know, because you will not leave. You were not born to. You were born to dig, to bow, to bury, to live, and then be forgotten. But still, on some nights, when the sky is unusually clear and the stars are unusually close, you find yourself dreaming again. And for a few minutes, your free asterisk in the medieval village, death was not the end. It was a door, but no one knew where it led. And sometimes it didn't close. The graveyard lay at the edge of the village. Not fenced. Just a patch of land where the grass never grew right, where the air felt thinner, even in summer, where children were warned never to play. Some nights, you swore the ground moved. You told yourself it was the wind, or animals, or memory. But deep down, you knew better. When someone died, there was no ceremony. Not really. There were no coffins, no flowers, no stone markers. Only a hole, a blanket. A prayer whispered too quickly. The men dug, women wept. And the priest spoke Latin none of you understood. Then dirt, always the dirt, and then silence. But some bodies didn't stay buried. The soil was shallow. The frost made the ground brittle. Rain washed away what little covered the dead. You'd wake one morning and find a bone in the road, or a hand reaching from the grave like it had simply forgotten to lie still. Some said the dead didn't rise on their own. They were called by grief, by rage, by sins unconfessed. If a man died without forgiveness, he might wander, cold, mouthless, still bleeding. If a woman died in childbirth, her soul might remain hovering over the cradle, rocking it in silence. The village told stories of the lantern that floated behind the mill, of the white figures seen crossing the stream at night, of whispers heard in the old hut where no one lived anymore. You laughed at those stories when you were young, but not after what you saw. You remember the night you heard your brother's voice. He'd been gone 6 weeks, taken by fever. You had buried him yourself, but there he was, outside the hut, calling your name just once, and then silence. You didn't open the door. You didn't look, because some part of you knew. If you had looked, he would have been there, and he would not have been alone. They say never answer when the dead speak. Never follow a cry after dark. Never dig where the ground is already disturbed, because the dead are lonely. They remember. They remember who didn't say goodbye, who left them cold, who forgot their name. They remember everything. Sometimes they knock on your dreams, sit by the fire, or watch you from behind the tree line. They mean no harm most of the time, but in a village so full of grief, the line between the living and the dead was always thin, and in the end, you feared not death, but what came after. Not everyone in the village had a name. Some were born to poor, too sick, too late in the season. Some were never baptized, never recorded, never seen by the priest. They lived in the corners, in the shadows, the margins of memory. And when they died, they were buried in unmarked soil, or not at all. You might think a life so hard would at least be remembered, but most weren't. There were no books, no tombs, no ink to preserve them, only whispers, and whispers fade. There was a boy. You can't recall his name. He limped when he walked, couldn't speak right. He followed others, laughed when they did, cried when they left, and one day didn't come to the fields. No one asked why. No one went looking. His hut stood empty for a while. Then someone moved in, and that was the end of him. There was an old woman they called her Crow Mother. She spoke to birds, carried bones in her pockets, laughed too loud at nothing. Some said she was mad. Some said she saw too much. In one winter, she froze in her hut. They found her upright in her chair, eyes open, hands clenched around a feather. They didn't bury her. They burned the hut, and no one spoke her name. Again, it wasn't cruelty. It was survival. There wasn't time to grieve everyone, to remember everyone, so the village forgot the ones it could, to make room for the ones it couldn't. 4. The mother. The infant. The one who died screaming. The ones whose absence left a hole too wide to step over. But the others simply disappeared, like mist before the morning sun, like breath in cold air. Gone. And one day will be you. No one will remember the way your voice cracked, the way you laughed when no one was watching, the way your hands bled in winter. Your name will not be written. Your face will not be carved. You will not become legend. You will become dirt ash, a shape that was once a person and then nothing at all. Because in a medieval village, survival is not glory, it is not remembered, it is simply endured and then forgotten. You would not survive a day. But even if you did, no one would remember that you were ever here. The village was surrounded by forest, dark, thick, older than the roads. Older than the maps, it's older maybe than the church itself. The trees did not move like other trees. They didn't sway when the wind passed. Sometimes you felt them leaning just enough to notice. It's just enough to feel watched. And that was the thing. You always felt watched. It began when you were a child. You strayed too far chasing a rabbit. A few steps beyond the last fence, and suddenly the trees closed behind you. You hadn't gone deep, but it was already dark. No birds, no sound. Only branches bent into shapes they shouldn't be. Only roots that moved slightly when you blinked. You stood still, and something stood still with you. Not a beast, not a man, but something watching. When you made it home, no one scolded you. They just looked relieved. And quietly, your grandmother marked your door with chalk. You didn't ask why. You didn't have to. Scene shift. What the villagers believed the forest wasn't just a place. It was a presence. It had moods. It remembered. No one cut too deep into its edge. No one took more wood than they needed. No one sang loudly beneath the canopy, because the forest heard everything, and it didn't always forgive. There was a man named Owing. He trapped game in the woods illegally. One day he brought back too much. A buck with no eyes. A bird with 2 hearts. A hare that bled black. The village begged him to return it. He laughed. That night the trees groaned, the wind screamed. By morning, Owing's hut had collapsed in on itself. No one found his body, just footprints. Leading into the woods and then stopping, they say the forest takes what it is owed. That it waits, not patiently, but knowingly. Because time is different there. Longer, hungrier. You knew someone who followed a white figure between the trees. She said it looked like her mother, but her mother had died last winter. She went in anyway. She came back 3 days later, but her eyes were wrong. Her voice was hollow. She never spoke again, just sat by the fire, rocking a bundle that wasn't there. Now, you walk the edge. You gather branches. You whisper thanks. And when the wind shifts, you bow your head. Because you feel it, the watching, the stillness behind the bark, the presence behind the moss, the breath beneath the soil. It doesn't hate you, but it doesn't love you either. It remembers what was stolen, what was buried, what was fed, and it waits always, so you light your fire. You sleep facing the wall, and you pray the forest doesn't remember your name tonight. In every medieval village was someone who held a knowledge that could not be spoken, someone who lived at the edge, not quite priest, not quite healer, not quite woman, not quite safe. She was called the midwife, but she was more than that. She was the one they called when the blood wouldn't stop, and the baby wouldn't turn, when a mother screamed louder than she should have, and no priest dared step inside the hut. She came with her satchel, with her fingers stained with ash, herbs no one else dared name, with prayers that didn't come from the church, and always, with silence, she knew things others weren't allowed to know: how to stop a pregnancy before it began, how to make a pain pass quietly, how to birth the living, how to bury the ones who never breathed. Not every child was wanted. Not every child was allowed. Some were born wrong. Some were born cursed. Some were never meant to survive the winter. She knew how to make them sleep without suffering, without sound, without leaving a mark. It was a knowledge older than scripture, passed down in whispers, hidden in recipes. Buried beneath root and smoke, there was a girl once, 16, unmarried, pregnant. She came to the midwife at dusk, crying. By dawn, she left alone. No one asked what happened, and when the priest came looking, the midwife said nothing, just stirred her cauldron, looked past him. The priest did not return. The villagers needed her, but they feared her. Some said she could speak to the dead. Some said she'd once birthed a child with black eyes and no mouth. Some said she knew how to curse a man's name so his crops would die, and maybe some of it was true. She was allowed to live, but only just. She was not invited to feast days. She was not offered wine. She was not mourned when she passed. Only the oldest women wept. Only the wolves howled that night. You remember the way her hands trembled, not with age. With memory, you remember how she sang while she worked. Songs that didn't have words. Songs that didn't come from here. And you remember the last time you sawed by the well. Alone, staring into it like it might answer back, she left the village the next day. No one knows where. Some say she walked into the woods and vanished. Some say the forest took her. Some say she was never real to begin with. But you know better. She was the one who carried every secret this village tried to forget, and she took them all. With her, the babies, the herbs, the screams in the dark. All of it gone. In the center of the village, where the earth was dug deepest, stood the well-dot rough stone, moss in the cracks, rope worn down by decades of hands. It gave the village what it needed most, water, and it took from the village what it wanted. Most children, no one would say it aloud, but everyone knew. The well was not just a hole in the ground, it was a mouth. It was a hunger, it was a promise, made long ago and never broken, and every few years it had to be fed. You'll remember the boy, small, curious, not afraid of anything. One morning he ran ahead, playing with a stick, chasing shadows. The rope was too low. The lid left off, the bucket still wet. And then silence. No scream, no splash, no echo. Just gone. They called for him. The priest prayed. The mothers wept. But no one climbed in. Not even the bravest, because everyone already knew. The well had taken him, and no one ever came back. They tried to fill it once. Years before you were born, stones, wood, salt, for 7 nights. They dropped everything they could into its mouth. But by morning it was still there, still open, still thirsty. So they stopped trying. Old women say it's not just water at the bottom. They say there's a room made of bone, lit by candles that never burn out, filled with toys that never rust, and in the center, cradle, rocking, and hands. Too many hands, too small, too pale. Reaching upward, waiting. There was another child once. Girl, she drew water just before dusk. Her reflection didn't match her face. She screamed. Her mother found her. Eyes wide, mouth full of dirt, whispering a name no one knew. She never spoke again. Now, no one draws water at night, not even the desperate. The well stands alone after. Sunset, the rope tied, the lid locked, the bucket turned upside down, and still, if you listen. You might hear laughter, faint, far below, not cruel, not kind. Just waiting. The well has never been empty, never will be. Asterisk, there's a hut in the village. It leans slightly to one side, as if something inside pulled it down. Its door never quite shuts, its roof never quite dries. Its hearth never quite warms. No one lives there anymore. No one will, because there's something wrong with that. It's a place and everyone knows it. The first family moved in during a bitter winter. They had nowhere else to go. The father was proud. The mother, thin from childbirth. The baby, always crying. They brought with them a single beeswax candle, gift from a traveler, said to burn for 7 nights without dimming. But on the first night, it went out. They relit it and went out again. No wind, no breath, just darkness. They tried another, and another H-flame died, as if swallowed by something unseen. By the 3rd night, the mother was sick. By the 4th, the baby wouldn't feed. By the 5th, the father stood outside in the snow. Whispering something into the wind, they left on the 6th. The candle remained half-melted, still cold. The second family didn't believe in curses. They were merchants, worldly, unshaken by village superstition. They brought torches, oil lamps, salt rings, but it didn't matter. Every light failed. The firewood hissed. The hearth spat sparks that never took. The lamps cracked. Torches sputtered. Out before they touched the walls, and the air was always damp, always heavy, like it was being breathed by something else. They left in silence, left everything behind, including the candle, still untouched. The 3rd family never truly left. They moved in during spring. Fresh blooms, blue skies. They laughed at the stories. They lit the candle, watched it flicker, and watched it go out. By morning, no one answered the door. By noon, the priest refused to enter. By sunset, the door blew open on its own, and the only thing inside was the candle standing, unburned, waiting. They say the hut remembers. It doesn't like strangers. It doesn't like fire. It doesn't like warmth. And so it snuffs it out again, and again, and again. Children dare each other to spend a night. Inside. Most leave within minutes, shivering, wide-eyed, unable to say what they saw. Some say you can hear someone breathing behind the walls. Some say it's colder than snow, even in summer. Some say if you relight the candle, you'll see who lived there last, and you won't come back. The hut still stands, the candle still waits, and every so often, the wind carries the scent of wax and the faintest whisper of flame, dying one last time. It began with dreams, not nightmares. Those were common here, but these were different. People dreamed of voices, soft ones, familiar, of hands reaching out through mist, of knocking at the door just after midnight. 3 knocks. Always 3. They dreamed of children who had died, of wives buried beneath frost, of fathers lost in the plague and in the dream.
Ow.
Those loved ones were standing outside the hut, asking to be let in. No one spoke of it, not at first, because no one wanted to believe it. But then came the footprints. Tiny ones, wet ones, trailing through mud up to the door. Stopping at the threshold, no one knocked, but the door creaked anyway, and when they opened it, nothing. only cold. And something missing from the room behind them. A blanket, a piece of bread, a lock of hair. Things the dead might remember. Then came the singing. From the fields, from the forest edge, from the well low, hollow. Like lullabies sung through water, and people began to whisper. They're coming back. Not in spirit, but in flesh. Or something wearing flesh. One man said he saw his brother outside. His brother who died 5 winters ago. He didn't look older. He didn't look alive. He just stood there, not breathing, not blinking, until the man closed the window, didn't open it again. Children began to talk in their sleep, saying names no one had taught them, telling stories of places they had never been. A girl drew a picture in ash on the floor of a door, and behind it figures with no faces. Smiling, she never spoke again. Professional, one night you heard them too. Footsteps, soft, measured, and then the knock 3 times. You didn't open it, you prayed, you covered your ears, but somehow you still heard the voice, calling you by a name no one else knew. By morning, the village was different, quieter, heavier. The priest wouldn't leave. The chapel, the birds stopped singing. The dogs stopped barking, and no one, not one soul, went out after dark again. They say it passed, that the dead returned to sleep, but some say they never left. They're still here. Behind the walls, beneath the floors, just outside the trade. Window. Waiting for someone to forget. Waiting for someone to open the door. There was a winter the village does not speak of. Not because they forgot it, but because they remembered it too well. The year the snow came early. The year the ground never thawed. The year the grain turned black in the barns, and the rats left. That was how they knew it would be bad. The rats always stayed until... That year, the first to go were the old. They gave up their blankets, gave away their bowls, laid still by the hearth, and never rose again. No one wept. There were no tears left, just breath and frost and silence. By midwinter, the children stopped playing. Even the ones too young to understand fell quiet. Laughter was wasteful. Warmth had to be kept inside the chest, like a secret. Bread became a story. Meat became a memory. They boiled bark. They crushed bones. They ate what they could. And when the animals were gone, they looked to the shadows, to the ones no one would miss, to the ones too weak to fight. A man named Barrack confessed to the priest, said he had seen something in the woods, something that offered him food. A price, it said, a price he could pay. They found Barrack's daughter the next morning, frozen, smiling no. One asked questions. Barrack never went hungry again, but his eyes never blinked the same way. A woman gave birth that winter, alone, in the dark, too weak to cry. The baby didn't make a sound. And yet, they said she kept holding it, rocking it, feeding it something no one else could see. When the thaw came, they found her skeleton in the hut. The cradle was empty, but there were tiny footprints in the ash, leading to the door, and out into the snow. You survived, somehow, barely. You remember sucking on stones to stop the hunger. You remember your teeth falling out. You remember firewood that smoked but never burned. You remember dreaming of warm bread, of sun, of summer that never came. When spring finally broke the sky, the village was smaller. So many faces gone, no graves, just absence, and the sound of melting ice dripping from empty windows. They never rebuilt the huts that collapsed. They never opened the barns again. That year remained buried, not because it was forgotten, because it never really ended. Winter still comes. Every year, and even now, when the snow falls too early and the rats begin to leave, the village remembers asterisk. It's quiet now. The village is still. The wind is softened. No one is working. No one is praying. No one is watching the road. Everyone is sleeping. And you're not walking anymore. You're lying down. You're inside a hut. You don't remember entering it, but it feels like home. Not the kind of home with laughter or light, but the kind you belong to, the kind that was waiting for you. You try to remember where you came from, why you arrived here, how you're still listening, but it slips away, like smoke, like mist, like stories, because maybe you never came to this village, maybe you never left. You see a face, not yours, but familiar, worn, tired, softened by time. You. Hear your name, not the name you use now, but the one this place gave you, the one whispered behind doors, written in ash, tied into bundles of herbs. You don't need to answer. You don't need to speak. You are known here. You always were. The candle beside your bed flickers once. You don't fear it. Not anymore. The shadows are calm. The cold is kind, and the silence is warm. Outside, the forest leans. The well sighs. The chapel bell holds its breath. The village is full of echoes now. Old stories, old steps. Old names that never really left. And among them you, not as a visitor, not as a voice, but as one of them. You lie still. The straw beneath you no longer itches. The blanket is heavier now, like soil, like time, and your breath slows. Once, then again, and then. You are part of the story now, not the teller, not the traveler. It's another villager, waiting to be forgotten, waiting to sleep. And as your eyes close, you hear it, the low murmur of life continuing, footsteps in the distance, a fire being lit, a baby's first cry, a shovel hitting earth, a song no one remembers. Life goes on without you, because you are part of the place now, in the village. Thanks you for listening, for staying, for remembering what no one else would. Even if only for one night. Sleep. Now, you are always here. You've made it. You survived. Not the battles, not the kings. Not the tales that fill scrolls or stone, but the quiet things. The cold. The hunger. The silence. The years no one recorded. You walked the muddy roads. You stood by the well. You watched the fire die. And still, you remained. And now, you become part of this place. The village no map remembers. The life no. History honors. The breath no one hears. Except now, tonight. Here. So close your eyes. Let the forest fall silent. Let the candle fade. No more footsteps. No more cries. Just the hush of a world gone still. And when you wake, you'll carry something no one else can. Not a story, but a memory. A place made not of wood or stone, but of time, of people, of shadows, lives that mattered quietly, just like yours. Thank you for staying. Thank you for remembering. Now sleep, and let the village sleep too.